Shalom and welcome to Simchat Yisrael. This week's Besorah is Matthew 17 and contains the account of the Transfiguration of Yeshua. Transfiguration is the English translation of a Latin term that means a momentary divine radiance. The Catholic philosopher St. Thomas Aquinas considered the Transfiguration to be Yeshua's greatest miracle, but the Transfiguration stands out among all the miracles of Yeshua in that it's the only one that doesn't seem to have a practical reason for him to have done it. Most of Yeshua's miracles were done to help other people. He was healing them and casting out demons and raising them from the dead. Yeshua had these amazing supernatural abilities, but for the most part he only liked to use them for the benefit of others. But then there's the Transfiguration. It's an epic moment, but it doesn't seem to accomplish much. In fact, only 3 people even witnessed it, and then Yeshua told them not to tell anyone about it till later. So what was Yeshua trying to accomplish in his Transfiguration? Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel down below. Yeshua's ministry can only be fully understood if you read it in context. So while it's very convenient to read the Bible chapter by chapter, it's important to remember what's been happening in the story so far. And what happened immediately prior to the Transfiguration was that Yeshua was being challenged by the Pharisees to show them a clear and unambiguous sign from heaven. Yeshua had been performing miracles all over the place, but the Pharisees are saying, well, those might just be special effects and illusions. If you're really who you say you are, show us a sign, not from you, but from heaven itself. Then we will believe you. So Yeshua tells them to get lost, not because he can't do it, but because even if he did, they still wouldn't believe him. Remember in John 10 when he tells another group of Pharisees trying to test him, I told you, but you don't believe. The works I do in my Father's name testify concerning me, but you don't believe because you are not my sheep. My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. Yeshua isn't interested in being tested by his enemies, but he very much wants his sheep to recognize his voice. After this incident, Yeshua goes to his disciples and asks them, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Yeshua wants to get a general sense of who people think he is, and the news isn't great. Most people seem to think of Yeshua as a prophet or a social reformer. Some people are so ignorant that they don't even realize that Yeshua and John the Baptist are 2 different people. Then Yeshua asks them who they think he is, and Peter answers correctly. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Yeshua said to him, blessed are you because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. Notice how it's important to Yeshua that Peter didn't arrive at this conclusion on his own. If he did, he can always go back and say he made a mistake. But Peter can never change his mind about who Yeshua is because God himself revealed the truth to him. So the disciples know that Yeshua is the Messiah, but they don't yet realize what that means. From this point on, Yeshua tries to tell them that he must suffer and die and be raised on the 3rd day. But the disciples just can't accept that. They've read the scriptures. They know from Isaiah that the predicted role of the Messiah is to suffer, but for some reason they don't think this applies to Yeshua. Peter even tries to rebuke Yeshua for saying such things, and Yeshua, who had such nice things to say about Peter a minute ago, says, get behind me, Satan. Something isn't sinking in. The disciples may say that Yeshua is Messiah, but there's a part of them that doesn't really believe it. They need something more, something to really make them believe. At this point, Yeshua makes a decision. He tells his disciples, I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. If you won't believe what I tell you, I'm just going to have to show you. Fast forward 6 days. Yeshua brings his 3 closest disciples, Peter, John, and James, to the top of a high mountain. The disciples are exhausted from their climb, and they fall asleep, but are woken up by a blinding light. They look up to see Yeshua, but he's changed. He's bathed in light, and his clothes are whiter than anything you can imagine. And Yeshua isn't alone. Moses and Elijah have come from heaven to speak with him about his coming death and resurrection. Peter calls to Yeshua and identifies Moses and Elijah by name, but we have no idea how he was able to recognize them. But it's very significant that it's these 2 figures who appear here, rather than, say, Abraham and David. Yeshua tells us that he has come to fulfill the law and the prophets. Moses appears to act as a representative of the law, while Elijah comes as a representative of the prophets. The book of 1 Timothy tells us that Yeshua is the judge of the living and the dead, those believers in heaven and those still on earth. Moses represents the faithful who have passed away, while Elijah, who ascended to heaven while still alive, represents the living believers. Moses and Elijah also represent 2 messianic prophecies that Yeshua fulfills. At the end of his life, Moses tells the children of Israel that God will send another prophet to guide them, and that they must listen to him. The voice from heaven that accompanies the Transfiguration even echoes those very words. And the scriptures tell us that God will send the prophet Elijah to proclaim the Messiah. Yeshua confirmed that John the Baptist fulfilled this role, but here the actual prophet Elijah appears to remove any doubt that Yeshua is the promised Messiah of Israel. And the disciples finally get it. Peter has a very telling response when he sees this. He calls out to Yeshua and offers to build 3 sukkot for him, Moses, and Elijah. That seems like a strange thing to offer. He doesn't offer to go get them food or build a fire. He wants to build sukkot. Peter is remembering Zechariah 14, which tells us that when the kingdom of heaven is established, all the nations will celebrate the festival of Sukkot. When Peter sees the glorified Messiah, he finally believes in his heart that Yeshua is the Messiah, and he knows that the kingdom of heaven is about to be established. Throughout his ministry, Yeshua identifies himself as the Son of Man and the promised Messiah of Israel. But the Transfiguration is when heaven itself opened up and declared that Yeshua is the Son of God and that the kingdom of God was at hand. Shalom, and thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. And don't forget to visit simchatyisrael.org to learn more.